it was a dream come true. He was a huge Metallica fan. Unfortunately, Hetfield and Ulrich processed the death of their friend by tormenting their new bass player, and a weird "we hired you but how dare you try and replace Cliff" kind of thing. During this time, they released a Garage Days Revisited EP, which was a collection of covers primarily from obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands that had influenced them when they were starting out. This DIY low-budget release would go platinum, showing just how far the band had come, while the royalties that bands like Diamond Head received from this release would be life-changing for them as well. During this time, Metallica also released a video collection of bootleg clips focusing on Cliff Burton. Titled Cliff 'Em All, this video was also apparently quite successful, with Burton's cut of the profits going to his parents. With this combination of success and grief, the band would enter the studio again to work on their fourth album, but even before releasing it, they would sign on to join a massive stadium tour with Van Halen, the Scorpions, Dokken, and Kingdom Come. This tour was called Monsters of Rock, but this would end up being a kind of victory lap for Metallica, as they would reportedly steal the show each and every night. Thanks to this tour, Master of Puppets would go platinum, and on the heels of that accomplishment, they would release And Justice for All. Justice would feature long, fast-paced tracks and complex songwriting. Each song would be packed with complex riff after complex riff, all fitting together like weird, heavy puzzle pieces. Lyrically, the album dealt with serious subjects like the aforementioned nuclear destruction, the inequity of the American justice system, and even a personal song of Hetfield dealing with his Christian Science upbringing and the restrictions he wrestled with growing up. Unfortunately, Newsted's bass work was completely buried in the mix for a myriad of reasons by Lars in particular. The reasons for this, as well as the album itself, are discussed more fully in my episode on said album. Regardless, Justice would become the first Metallica record to enter the Billboard Top 10. Metallica would also make their first music video, but it was nothing like the normal fare produced by the typical glam metal bands. The video for their song One was black and white, and included footage from the anti-war film Johnny Got His Gun, which the song's lyrics were based upon. A video that stood in stark contrast to the normal fare produced by the hair metal bands of the day. As for Slayer, after breaking the speed limit with Rain and Blood, they would slow things down somewhat. With South of Heaven, Slayer realized there was no way they were ever going to top Rain in terms of sheer speed. So instead of trying to chase something that wasn't possible, they consciously slowed things down a bit on this record, and it would prove to be one of their most commercially successful efforts, but was disappointing to some fans more used to their earlier albums. Also, while they did not shy away from the evil imagery they had become known for, the band ditched most of the explicitly satanic stuff for this album because by this point they found it boring. Megadeth, meanwhile, was also finding increased success. They would release their third album, So Far, So Good, So What, which entered in the top 30 of the Billboard charts, but they would still receive no commercial airplay. This would also prove to be the only album to feature drummer Chuck Beller and guitarist Jeff Young. Again, I told you this was a thing. So Far, So Good, So What, though, was yet another step forward in their songwriting ability, and would feature tracks like Set the World Afire, which, as previously mentioned, deals with nuclear holocaust, and was a song that Mustaine wrote on the bus ride back to LA after being fired by Metallica. Also, whenever playing Fallout and I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire comes on the radio, I always half expect this song to start, because it samples that lyric in the intro. This album also has a track called Hook and Mouth that focuses on freedom of speech in response to the PMRC, as well as a song titled In My Darkest Hour, which Mustaine wrote in response to learning about Cliff Burton's death. It's all about his grief and his anger toward his former bandmates who did not contact him with the news. As we reached the end of the 80s then, heavy metal was everywhere. Glam metal ruled the airwaves, but uncompromising thrash was finding an ever-growing audience as well. Still, no matter how big they got, thrash would not kill glam. No, the LA bands would continue to reign atop the music world no matter what their rivals may do. Instead, it would be another city on the West Coast that would spawn a movement that would take down glam. But like always, that is a story for another time.
Thank you for listening to Distorted History. If you would like to help out, please rate and review the podcast and tell your friends if you think they'll be interested. If you're feeling especially generous and would like to help keep this podcast going, please consider visiting my Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/distortedhistory and donating a few bucks. Anything you can give is greatly appreciated. I will be posting updates on future episodes and sources there in addition to posting them on Twitter as I usually do. With all that being said, once again, thank you for listening, and until next time.